everybody. I'm Samantha Montanero, co-founder and CEO of Tokeativity. And today I am absolutely thrilled to be sitting here having a conversation with my guest, Andrea Beaulieu, founder of Studio Linear. Today we're going to talk about going from being a wine mom to becoming a weed mom. And when I met Andrea, I was so excited just about like how much the two of us have in common. We're both graphic designers, artists, musicians, and moms. And we both have had a love of wine and we both have a love of weed. So I'm so excited to have you with me today, Andrea. Thank you so much for joining me. A little bit about Studio Linear. Studio Linear is a creative agency that now specializes in cannabis and CBD branding. Andrea boasts 15 plus years of top-notch skill sets in visual communications, branding, and package design. With a background in horticulture, her style pulls in elements of the natural world with a mixed media collage style. She has worked with clients like Google, Dropbox, The Lost Kitchen, and many other brands in the music, food, and beverage industries. Recently, her agency made the switch to cannabis, and so did Andrea. So thank you so much for being here. Let's jump right into it. Andrea, how did you come to cannabis, or rather, how did cannabis come to you?
Well, thank you for such a sweet introduction. It's such an honor to be here with you. Cannabis was never something that, it wasn't on my radar when I was younger. And wouldn't say that I was a complete rebel in high school, but I definitely had plenty of experience with cannabis later in high school, definitely in college. I mean, I went to college for music. I feel like it kind of goes hand in hand. Um, but something shifted in me when I became a mom. It became harder for me to relax. I feel like when I became a mom, something switched inside of me. I found that I was a little more anxious than I used to be, and THC was just complicating that sometimes. It would make me a little more paranoid. I'd hear a noise and just be like, oh my God, like picturing the worst case. I think there's like some saying like the mom brain. Well, THC really amplified that to a point where I wasn't really comfortable with it. So it is something I set aside for the past. My son's 11. I have a 4-year-old, so it's something that my husband and I would dabble with here and there, but it just never really felt quite right. But it kind of makes sense because I was probably bombarding, my body with too much wine, and there needs to be a happy medium between, those sort of vices that I was using to deal with everyday stress of parenting, running a business, and everything.
Yeah, heck yeah. So you were working in the working with a lot of clients in the food and beverage, specifically the beverage industries as well. So you were literally creating branding for wine companies to market to mothers, right?
Yeah,
Talk to me
yeah.
a
I
little
mean,
bit about
definitely.
that and your own wine use too, and kind of how those things tied together.
Sure. I think that um, my love for wine. I mean, we grew up. My parents. We never let us, drink around them or anything. But there was, always barbecues, and there would be alcohol here and there. And as I got older, I found that I wasn't necessarily a social drinker. For me, drinking would happen, after a long day or a stressful day, and just in the kitchen, cooking, watching the cooking shows with Julia Child, and she would put a little wine in and then drink a little. So I was like, oh, that's totally normal. And you're right, I had these amazing clients that were in the beverage industry, and some of our biggest clients were in the industry. So I had sort of like this dream, you think of Mad Men and in those days of glamorous, schmoozing and cocktails. And I've had clients, we would be able to sample some of the products, and it was really a wonderful experience. But the alcohol really started to take its toll. And so I had to look at what made sense for me and what made sense for the business. If alcohol is starting to become so disruptive for myself, I could see that happening for other women and other moms, and it started to play on my own conscious. That it was it was this okay, to be designing and packaging and branding these products that were geared towards women? So it really made me look at that,
Mm.
myself.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's intense. And I mean, then come pandemic times. I don't know about you, but for me in the beginning, the statistics speak for themselves around alcohol sales, but it was like 1 p.m. martini, anyone? Is anybody else really stressed out? Like, oh, crack a bottle of wine at noon. Or, like
Definitely.
the lunch hour drinks started to flow a little bit more often, and it's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
Um, and then, yeah, I mean, speaking from, my experience as well as a designer, there is often a moral situation that we're put in as marketers, designers, as artists who are working with clients that want something where you have to make a choice for yourself at some point too, of like, how am I participating in this? And how
Yeah.
does that feel for me? So
Definitely. And it was a hard switch, it was something that the clients that we had in the beverage industry were some of the biggest clients we'd ever had. And to start thinking about, saying goodbye to those clients and making a shift was really hard because I support my family. My husband is incredible. He's a stay-at-home dad. But it is, it's up to me to provide for the family. And so saying goodbye to these huge clients, that was a little scary. And the unknown of these next steps, not only giving up alcohol, not only starting, diving into a pandemic, and not only, all these things like giving up alcohol and all these things sort of happened at once. Um,
mm,
it was definitely a scary time. It was right around, the pandemic times when everything really came. I just can think of that pivot moment when I remember being really scared. And I remember looking at my husband, I'm like, if there's no food in the grocery store, we might actually have to start making wine at home. Like that's how much I wanted wine to cope with. Um, but
yeah.
it was something that I had to really look at. And was it becoming a problem?
Yeah, heck yeah. Well, and culturally, you know, wine mom is the thing, right? Like mommy gets her juice too, and this is just
Yeah.
such a normal thing. And it's really interesting to see how, as I've been thinking about all of this. I mean, we continually think about this. We talk about this all the time with Tokeativity because it's just such an important part of this cultural shift that we're experiencing. But, thinking back to our parents' generations and like cigarettes,
Mm-hmm.
the thing that like everybody was smoking around their children and stuff. And then that cultural shift happened where it was like, yo, that's actually totally not okay, you know?
Yeah.
And like, yeah, the like, noon martinis and cigarettes while the kids are playing. It's like, maybe that's not the safest choice, you
Exactly. And it started
know?
to bother me. I would see it play dates, you'd go and there was mimosas. And then at lunch, there's, have a cocktail. And at dinner, 4 o'clock, right before dinner, have some wine and then finish that wine. And it became this message that really started to piss me off. And, no lack of terms, it really started to bother me that women were being targeted. You mentioned tobacco, and I feel like, this is big alcohol companies that were targeting women and targeting moms. And it started to really bother me, the message that as moms, we couldn't deal with it ourselves. We needed alcohol to cope with the stress or managing parenting and our work, balance. And that message started to really, was something that's the reason that I really started thinking, okay, it's time for a shift.
Mhm.
Mentally, I was there, and physically, I was starting to feel, the effects of drinking. It is, a poison in a way. And after a while, I was really starting to feel, I thought it was normal. I'm like, oh, this is just, just get up and a little
Right.
slower than usual. But, I just started to notice that it was taking its toll. And for me, it just took one night that I remember finally, it was like the moment, that epiphany moment. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was gonna say, talk to me about the day that you quit drinking. Tell me about like the epiphany moment and kind of the day that you were like, enough is enough. I have got to make a change.
Sure. Well, I had read this. this book, Quit Like a Woman. I think it's by Hallie Whitaker. I can't remember her last name. It's an amazing book, and it was very eye-opening for me. And when I decided to stop, it was late in the evening. My daughter, who's 4 now, the time she still co-sleeps, she actually still does now. But she was laying next to me, and I remember looking at her and seeing her curls in the bed and just, doing the mom thing where like you just take them all in. And I could just feel my heart like beating very, very like rapidly, like more than it ever had. And I was like, what is happening? And I've been noticing that more as I
Mm,
drank more, my heart rate was increasing and I could just sort of feel my pulse. And I actually laid there worrying that I was going to have a heart attack. And I'm like, what am I doing? I've got my baby next to me. Am I throwing it away? And it was that night that I decided enough was enough, and have stopped drinking ever since that night.
wow. As someone who, like I still drink pretty frequently, to be honest.
Hmm.
And sometimes I will take breaks or like, especially like I think about the holidays. I literally do have a little bit of anxiety this year going into the holidays because alcohol is just everywhere and it's really hard to be like to say no, to just say no sometimes and to keep that checks and balances in place. And while I feel I've always felt genuinely pretty proud of my consumption balance and like the amount of
Hmm.
control that I think I have. um, the idea of just quitting kind of forever is something that I've toyed with and it honestly like scares me a little bit. And then, again, like because it's just such a part for me as a musician and as, somebody who's very social and
Hmm.
obviously we're in a little bit of a different situation right now, but tell me about some of the things that you've done to curb not only like cravings, but the rituals, because yeah, like cracking a bottle of wine while I'm cooking, I can imagine giving that up. And I don't necessarily drink
Sure.
wine every single time I cook, but it's like one of my favorite pastimes. So
Oh, of course.
tell me about some of your the ways that you've kind of shifted your rituals and curbed some of those cravings and those hard moments.
Sure. That's a great question. I think that when you remove alcohol, I mean, for me, it's a vice. If I had a hard day or it's just, one of those days that I would hear myself saying that. And when it was removed, I was left with having to deal with one of those days. Like, oh my gosh, there was no replacement. And the first couple months were quite raw. It was hard to look at myself.
Mm,
The ups and downs that were so easily sort of leveled out with alcohol. And when it was removed, it was these extremes that I had to start dealing with. Socially, you're right. I mean, you start thinking about, oh my gosh, can I survive Christmas with the family, without this? And those things were definitely on my mind. But to be honest, it was really more of a personal journey and having to cope with this new understanding and this new light that kind of was, I guess, muted a bit over the years. And with that great light, there's also very dark times that I had to sort of,
right.
dive into. But, I think after the first few months, I did start some new rituals just to kind of like chill out. So I found like a wonderful tea, and that's really where I started getting into CBD. I needed to find a new ritual that I would get excited about.
Yes.
So I really actually got more into reading and started, trying different teas at night. Really, it was nighttime when I would normally drink. So it was nighttime that I wanted to
Mm.
focus on in developing new rituals. And actually, that's what led me to really looking into different CBD oils and playing around with how those would help me relax and that new ritual that I had to find.
I love that. I know for me, like, again, like I said, I still drink, but I've been making a conscious effort to curb it and to just drink less often. And to, like you were just describing, the like one of those days now I'm going to like cope. Like, can alcohol not be a coping thing? Can alcohol be, I'm a foodie. I love tasting and trying different things. I love craft culture. So that's something for me that excites me. But um one of my favorite things that that I've shifted during pandemic times to just drink less is I brew my own kombucha. And
Yeah.
then I love putting CBD in there and doing like, and putting it in a fancy glass and having like a sprig of basil or a piece of rosemary or, putting a little fruit piece in there. And I whip those up all the time now. And it like, I realize that it isn't the actual alcohol that is the ritual for me. It's literally the drink and the like making something
Yes.
that feels special.
Yep.
So I love that for you, it was like CBD tea.
It was, but also, we experimented with like kin euphorics, the different kin drinks, sweet reason. There was quite a few that I tried. And I forgot about how much I do it so often that I don't even realize that this is a ritual, kombucha and CBD oil. Like we're so much alike. So yes, that is something that I love. I love that it's healing. I know that it's healing my gut because I'm drinking kombucha and I know the CBD oil is working in, chilling me out a bit and just helping, joint movement and just overall well-being.
Mm, I love that so, so, so much. Um, I know too, for me, like sparkling water, getting like Soda Stream, talk about like save my
Yep.
life. Like just having bubble water with some CBD in it or not. But even
Hmm.
I love the little like syrups and different, you know, you can get like really yummy ones. I love getting them from New
Hmm.
Seasons is the store we have here. It's kind of like Whole Foods or something. It's like, these little tonics that you can put in sparkling water and it just feels
Ooh,
so special. And
that's awesome.
I just love that. So I have to ask, have you started consuming THC, since quitting drinking? And like you were saying that you had, really kind of ditched THC because it was giving you so much anxiety, which I can also completely relate with that. When I had my son, it was like, wow, my body really just went through a change. And
Hmm.
I noticed the sensitivity to it. And of course, you're all of a sudden like, oh my God, how do I keep this kid alive? Like all of a sudden, no one tells you about that part that then they come out and then you're just worried they're going to die all the time.
I
you know,
know, right?
it's so anxiety producing. It's just like, oh, life is just
Yes.
so full of, and parenthood is so full of joy and just like sheer terror and fear.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, it's
you
definitely
know,
that. I feel like most of the time I'm just screaming on the inside, like one of the kids is gonna fall, and I just picture the worst case scenario. And then if that doesn't happen, I'm like, oh, good, everything's okay.
yeah, for sure. So, have you started implementing THC into your regimen at all? And how has that been for you?
Yeah, so I think once I was able to remove alcohol, and I think the alcohol was really triggering a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. So once I was able to remove that, I feel like mentally, it freed up the ability to start experimenting again. And so, yes, I do occasionally try in the form mostly of edibles, just because I have an 11-year-old daughter. Obviously, I don't think that they would want to see me smoking, and it feels a bit more discreet to have edibles. And so, yes, I definitely mentally can handle that in very, micro doses. I don't think I can go back yet to my college days, um, although maybe I can, maybe that Tokeativity tour, who knows how comfortable I'll get. But right now, it's small doses. And for me during the day, actually, I found a good combination of CBD and CBG oil. The CBG
Mm,
oil has been incredible in just focusing. It's like almost like that cup of coffee without the jitters, and I can just focus in, and it seems to boost creativity. I don't know if it's just in my
mm.
head, but it seems to feel fantastic in combination with CBD.
That's amazing. We were talking a lot about CBG the other day and just these isolated cannabinoids that are starting to become available to consumers and how we're really starting to be able to understand the ways these different cannabinoids interact with our bodies and how we can utilize them to just be feeling our best, living our
Mhm.
best lives, being the best parents we can be, being the best women we can be in our life, in our work life, in our home life. And that's really cool. I will give that a try. I will give that for creativity and let you know if I experience anything.
Perfect.
That's really cool. So what advice would you give to anyone who's considering giving up alcohol and, utilizing cannabis, to help them quit?
I know everyone's journey is obviously going to be so different. We all are on a path for a certain reason. I think for me, what really helped was, like I mentioned, that book, Quit Like a Woman. I think that learning a little bit more about the industry helped to fuel this sort of fire inside of me, that it was beyond, yeah, I'm quitting just to quit. It was different this time. I was quitting also because I was fed up. I was fed up with the messaging. And I think finding what is going to fuel that, for you and for all women, this is going to be a different experience for everyone, but just finding something that helps to spark that. And I think back to that book often, if I'm, had a hard day and I'm like, oh my God, it'd be so easy to grab a glass of wine. But what I learned was just how bad, alcohol is for us. And I think knowing the science behind it and knowing just beyond, yeah, obviously it's bad. I like to over research everything. So to learn a little bit more about it really helped me know how it was hurting my body. And I'm 41, so I'm no spring chicken. So I'm always looking for ways to feel better, and that definitely was not one of them. So I think my advice would be just to find the path that seems right to you, and experimenting with CBD and CBG. And I know there's a lot of different ways that you can get that. I've tried it, like you mentioned, in drinks and teas, but I find for myself, I like just having them in tincture, and I like to be able to add it to as much. I put it all over. My husband was laughing at me the other day because I was taking some drops and some fell on my cheek and I was rubbing it in. I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna let that little drop go to waste. And he's like, can I help you here? I was like, no, it's just rubbing in everywhere. I'm like, I
Just put
love
it
it. I think it's
everywhere.
great. Eye drops
Yeah.
everywhere. Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much, Andrea. That's like anti-patriarchal, right? That's smashing the patriarchy, like taking it into your own hands. I love like that you empowered yourself with education. I think you bring up a really important point here because red wine is touted as a health food item, right? That it's like good for your health. And I think there's a lot of interesting research out there that, maybe states otherwise, that, um, especially when you're looking at the process of, you know, the state of the market. So like, where is it, how
Mhm.
is this wine being made? Like, I think that there are definitely alcohol is also a form of plant medicine, right? But like,
Sure.
where is it over processed to a point, or whatever? Like, you know what I'm saying? That like
Yeah.
maybe red wine made in Italy, like with this ancient process or whatever, is actually really good for you. But the wine that we're like
Oh,
slamming
yeah.
all day long is not that, it's
It's
not that
not.
wine.
It's not supposed to rosé all day. You're right. I mean, I have also, I would read that red wine is okay, and I would process that as, well, then it's okay, that bottle is okay. I think that that is very good marketing. As bad as it sounds, that we would obviously eat that right up, that it is good for our health. So why not drink it?
Oh my gosh. So, you know, with cannabis branding, kind of switching into weed here, we're in such an interesting, point in our cultural shift here with like what we're consuming and wellness and education, even, right? The internet. We all have like the internet at our the tips of our fingers. We can just access information anytime. We're also being marketed to constantly. People are starting to wake up, I think, to this a little bit. And even despite all of the things going on about cannabis, the countless, anecdotal stories of people healing themselves and generations of people being like, this is a plant that is safe to consume. No one's ever died from it. now we have products out there like CBD that are like really genuinely, I firmly believe that, everybody should be having CBD, including our pets and our children in
Mm-hmm.
small doses. And it's very helpful for our deficient systems.
Yep.
But we have a really long way to go with the messaging. And we have a very long way to go with, how people feel about cannabis and the marketing around cannabis, right? Marketing
Oh
has
my
changed our
gosh.
minds, all kinds of different things. So let's talk about cannabis branding and the trends. Like, what are you noticing? And let's first talk about like what the trends used to be, like high
Oh
time
yeah.
stoner bro.
Sure. And I mean, I think that's what, when that's what I picture people think about when I say, if I'm a Cannamom. I think they're picturing me in my tie-dyed shirt and my Birkenstocks. I actually have Birkenstocks because they have a really good
I love
arch.
her.
But well, yeah. But I feel like it is that, image, the Cheech and Chong, the Grateful Dead shows, and nothing, against that. I obviously,
Yeah.
it's just I feel like
Love the trend. Yeah.
that's what people are picturing, and I think as it becomes more lifestyle, that's where I'm seeing and I'm excited about cannabis. It's gone from, that tie-dye grow culture, and it's shifting to more of a lifestyle experience. And that's where I see the shift in the marketing and the branding and the packaging and the brand messaging and the story. It is now so much more than just, this flower and this strain. It is now becoming, like we've used this word so often, this ritual and this form of well-being. So of course the branding and the marketing need to follow that message. And so I think that's where it's obviously heading. It's there in a way. We're starting to see some incredible brands pop up. I like to think of it, when you go to Target, and I don't know about you, but half the time, just browsing the aisles, there's nothing that I actually needed that ended up in my cart, but it's just gorgeous packaging, it's gorgeous messaging. I feel like eventually that is what we'll see in cannabis. It will become so normal. It will become a part of our daily life that you'll start seeing those, incredible pre-rolls or, CBD on the shelves at Target someday. And it will just fit into our lifestyle at that point.
Yeah, heck yeah. I mean, I can't help but wonder, is it already on the shelf at Target? I was there recently.
I was actually,
I'm like, it might be. It's like freaking everywhere now.
I know, as I was saying that, I was like, I haven't been to Target in so long. It probably is now.
Yeah, right. I love that. And I think, what excites me about being a designer and working with brands, which I still do sometimes on the side, as an entrepreneur and as a mom over the years, it's been the thing that's kind of kept me afloat, working with brands. And I've been working in the cannabis branding space now for 7 years.
Hmm.
And what really excites me is that this brand messaging is attached to a genuine personal evolution, the commitment, the like self-healing revolution. For me, like cannabis is about the great rise of like the feminine and the
Yep.
balancing of like, our out of balance world. It isn't even just about consuming cannabis, but about industrial hemp and about like, utilizing this amazing plant that was prohibited, for all of the reasons that we know. There's a lot of reasons cannabis was made illegal, being a racist move first and foremost, and
Hmm.
perpetuating essentially legal slavery, with for-profit prisons and all of that kind of stuff, allowing for the cotton and paper industries and plastic industries to explode.
Hmm.
There's a good reason why hemp was made illegal, for people who want to, have all the power and all the money. Um, but now it's like the plant can't be stopped. It's like people like, yeah, the plant has its own agenda. I totally believe. And I love the branding that I'm starting to see. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the clients you've worked with? I'm like blown away. Your website, first and foremost, is such a fun experience. I love going to your website. It's just beautiful, and it literally is an experience itself, which, just really excites me in general. And then some of the brands that you've worked with, I'm just like, I just want to buy it because it's so beautiful.
Oh,
And I love that I feel like I'm seeing in a lot of your branding homage to some of this OG culture of as well, that it's not just like lost, like the psychedelic culture, like the 60s, and the movements with the free the plant movements, that kind of started around then, that there's some of that, but there's something that just really takes it up a level. It's like very classy and very approachable, and definitely lifestyle oriented. Do you want to tell us about some of your favorite clients, and
oh,
maybe
sure.
some fun things, some fun projects that you're working on?
Definitely. Well, thank you for some of the sweetest words anyone has ever said. Like, I feel like, oh my goodness, I'm blushing. That was so kind. I mean, I can't take all the credit for this because we have such amazing clients that come to us with this idea that it inspires us to then be creative around our clients. So we're really lucky to attract the most incredible clients because they've come to us, they've seen something that interests them, and they trust us. They trust us as designers. And so with these clients coming to us with these amazing cannabis brands, it just really is a foundation for the brand to build off of. If you don't
Mhm.
have great clients and great ideas, then us as designers, we can't put out this work. So we truly need these clients, and are so, privileged and proud to be working with them. I mean, some of them that we are working on, they're fantastic. I mean, there's some Maine-based companies that we're working with. Lifted Edibles is one of them. They make a lemonade that is amazing. It is incredible. It's a THC infused lemonade. They're coming up with some incredible new lines of just to go beyond like the traditional edibles. And so I'm really excited for that. We haven't even put much on our portfolio yet for this brand because we're still in the midst of working with them, but we've got some really fun stickers to go along with that brand. There's a fun women's cannabis company. I mean, has been one of the most fun projects this year. And then some of the other ones that we're working on, Lit Lux, that's a sort of a higher end. I think of like my mom used to, I think, wear Clinique or use Clinique products. And I
Yeah.
remember seeing the packaging. It's very minimalist, and I was always very drawn to it. And so that brand feels similar to that. So we're seeing this pattern of these brands being nostalgic in a way.
Mm.
These fun, Lifted Edibles is like a fun, um, sort of poppy, vibrant brand, but then Lit Lux is more of your premium Clinique, sort of brand. So we're definitely having a lot of fun there. And we actually have some that I can't say too much about because of, NDA, but we have some amazing new lines that are going to be coming out this year. And I think one of the best parts of our job is that we get to sample these products. I mean, we get to
Yeah.
work with these amazing women who are developing these brands because a lot of them saw, a lack in the industry. They wanted to develop this own brand because they couldn't find it themselves. So they're
Yeah.
starting up these brands.
Yeah.
And not only do we get to work with them on the branding and the packaging and web, but we get to try them. So it's a win-win.
That is so amazing. And I love what you said to that. I wanted to mention this earlier. I think that once it was like realized that, women make 70 to 80% of like all household purchases, and women really are actually controlling a lot of the spending happening
Hmm.
in the global economy, especially in the United States. That yeah, what types of brands do we want? Do we want some dude bro brand that is marketing us this thing that turns us into drunk moms? Like,
Hmm.
like, do we want that, or do we want brands that are made by other feminists who genuinely, who have their own why as to why they're even showing up in the space? And I think that's something about the cannabis industry in general that is really different than almost any other industry. Um, because there's this like personal touch to it of like, cannabis changed my life. And
Yes.
I love this plant and I want other people to experience this as well. And I want other people to not feel afraid. And I want to be a part of this movement. And I want to, I think there's an activism element that I think for a lot of people, cannabis is their first, entrance into like activism. By even just sporting a cannabis leaf pin or wearing weed leaf earrings or something like this, you are genuinely making a statement. And I don't think it's to go too far to say, like, by even just wearing cannabis jewelry or speaking your truth or sharing on social media that you use cannabis or you're trying CBD for different things or whatever else, it's like this is activism at this point. That really
I
excites
agree with you.
that really.
Yeah, and it's becoming more of a ritual, like we keep on mentioning for women. It's becoming a self-care. I mean, we're looking for now for products that are going to better our lives. I feel like for me at least, COVID was a time to pause. When we were in quarantine, I had time to be at home and really take time to sit. And I think we had a little bit more free time through the chaos. And in that time that we could all pause, I feel like and we saw, cannabis industry take off, it was time that we could start researching about improving our health and
Mhm.
about, making changes in our life. And that was a big part of why I chose this path, um, for mostly medicinal, for health reasons, just I noticed like my joints, I have RA and other autoimmune issues. I noticed with CBD, my joints don't hurt. Where before I'd pick up my daughter and I felt like a 90-year-old woman, and it
Oof.
was sad. And now I'm like, no, I can't run a marathon just yet. maybe, maybe like we'll launch some sort of new line for like women's like marathon, no, something like. But I just
Yeah.
feel I can. There's a lot more that I can do now, and I think that that is what women are looking for. And we don't always need a product to do something. It could just be pure enjoyment, like a bath bomb that's infused. But I'm definitely seeing a shift, or at least we are, in design in women looking for those items.
Yeah, heck yeah. Let's end with the future. Like, what do you like paint us the picture of what you see for the future of like what products are we going to see on the shelves and what is it going to look like?
Sure. Well, this is where it gets really exciting because obviously we don't know really what's happening and where trends are headed. Um, but I think there's some really exciting cannabis brands starting to, expand into more of a digital, virtual sort of reality. That excites me tremendously. I see brands going beyond a product and beyond just, a lifestyle that you might see in imagery, and now taking the next step into a digital sort of virtual world where, we might be able to experience effects of different cannabis products through virtual reality.
Mhm.
We might be able to play around with VR, and filters and how, cannabis can sort of give off a vibe or a feeling. And I just see something trending there. As you know, you and I have talked, like it's
Yeah,
exciting to see what
very,
the
very excited
NFTs
to
are
say.
happening. hmm so I see that it's trending. I mean, I hope because I think just, selfish, that would be really exciting to get into. I think it's headed in that direction. And then I just think that it's becoming more normal. It's becoming something that, I think myself, if I could look at myself a year ago, I might not have been as comfortable being very open about my cannabis use here, with you, because I think I would have been nervous about what were people going to think? Were they going to think, I was a stoner and,
Yeah.
we, don't do anything? And I think that now it feels, I'm proud of it in a way. Like there's been a real shift. And I see that in women who are starting businesses in cannabis. We're proud to tell our story, like you said. And we're just lucky to be here to work with those amazing women.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for joining me today. This was a really exciting conversation. I feel like we could just keep going for literally hours. Honored to talk with you and congratulations on just like all of the progress you've made personally and professionally. I can't wait to see what comes out of Studio Linear in the future and the brands that you're going to work with. And the moves that you're going to make for normalization and this culture shift that is happening right now. People deserve to feel good, and
Mm-hmm.
cannabis and CBD can really help with that.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Thank you for having me. And I,
Yes.
like you, can't wait to see what the next year or so holds for us.
I can't wait to. Thanks again.
Thank you.